Sir. No, sir.
Huh? No, sir.
Yes, sir, it's feasible.
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Now, yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, sir.
Okay. So we were discussing about the cumulative distribution function. We were considering the properties of cumulative distribution function, and we ended here where we were trying to interpret the meaning of the observation that in case of a continuous random variable, the probability of the random variable taking up this particular value, that probability is 0. The last property, it's obvious, but probably you haven't written it down. 1 minus fx will be the probability of capital X greater than small x. You can also write it as probability of capital X greater than equal to small x. So it's 1 minus fx. You know that. Now I will move on to the probability density function. Recall that I have pointed out that probability density function, this is the
Sir, could you
derivative
please
of,
scroll up once more?
huh?
Could you please scroll up once more? Thank you, sir.
Probability density function. Now, if fx is the capital Fx is the cumulative distribution function of the random variable capital X, then it is the probability of observing capital X less than equal to small x. What will be the probability of capital X lying in this range less than equal to, greater than equal to minus infinity, less than equal to small x plus delta x? Delta x is a very small increment in x. So if there is an increment, then also there will be an increment in the cumulative distribution function. Or at most, it may remain constant. Let's consider that it's an increment in the value of capital Fx. So the probability of capital X lying in the range small x to small x plus delta x, what is that one? It is this probability delta Fx. All right. So we get from this expression, we get that if x plus delta x minus fx, that is equal to delta fx. If you divide both sides by delta x, you get this expression. Now, if you just impose this limiting condition, delta x tends to 0, what will happen to this ratio? It will be limit delta x tending to 0. This is delta fx by delta x. So it's the derivative of the cumulative distribution function and is represented as small f with argument x. If small f with argument x is the derivative of capital F, then obviously capital F will be the integral of small f. For the sake of mathematical correctness, I have introduced a dummy variable here, lambda, so that ultimately the result of this integration becomes a function of small x. So please write it down. খাবো বলো তো? This is not a proper view. Let me go back to the original view. Now here, just I have considered an arbitrarily drawn density function. All right. So area under this density function, from assuming that x can take on values in the range minus infinity to plus infinity, the area under this density function fx from minus infinity to say a certain value x1. What is that one? That is, according to this expression, it's capital F evaluated for x equal to x1. So what does this area represent? This area, it represents the probability of having capital X greater than equal to minus infinity less than equal to small x1. So write down this, draw this figure and just try to find out for the discrete random variable example that we have considered, the number of bits in error, that example. In that case, what will be the nature of the density function? Because for that case, we have already considered the cumulative distribution function, and the very nature of small fx here, drawn here, shows that because it's a continuous function, it shows that this is the density function of a continuous random variable. But for a discrete random variable, if you consider just particular example that I have considered last day, what will be the cumulative, the density function, nature of the density function? If you want to go back and have a look at your class note, you can do that. This was the nature. If I just recollect, this is the cumulative distribution function. Then what will be the nature of its derivative?
Say impulse function.
Right. If you differentiate it, you will get a train of impulse functions. Where will the impulse functions be located? Wherever there is a jump discontinuity. So one impulse will be located here, then over 0 to 1, capital Fx is constant, so the derivative will be 0. At small x equal to 1, what will happen? Again, there is a jump. So there will be another impulse here. Strength of the impulse here will be 0.6561. What will be the strength of the impulse there? The difference between these two. So it will actually be W1, the strength of the impulse here. The strength of the impulse there at x equal to 2, it will be equal to W2. Isn't it? The height of discontinuity, that will be the strength. You have already drawn this figure. So let me go on to the density function. The cumulative distribution function that you have considered, the staircase nature, recall that it can be represented by such an expression that you have studied in your signal systems course. Here, how many values of I are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I equal to 0 to 4. So it will be sum of shifted steps, and the jump discontinuity will be at x equal to xi, it will be equal to probability of x equal to xi. So if you differentiate it, it will consist of impulses. So this will be the density function. I have not written down the strengths of those two impulses. You just find out what were the values of W there and here and put it there. Here we had I equal to 0 to 4, but I can take on several values. So the general expression of the cumulative distribution function and the probability density function for a discrete random variable is given below. Summation over all the possible values of I in both the cases. Now come to the properties of the probability density function. So I may give you any expression for a function of x and ask you to ascertain whether the given function of x is a possible probability density function or not. Then you have to check the properties and find out. Fx should obviously be non-negative, because if it is negative, then even for a small duration of x, over there the probability value, which will be area under fx, that will come out as negative. So that is not possible. So it is non-negative. And that I have already written, integral of fx from minus infinity to any value x1 of x. It is the probability of having capital X less than equal to small x1. So probability of capital X lying in the interval x small x1 to small x2, what will that be equal to? It will be the integral of small fx over x1 to x2. This one. And because the probability of x equal to, in case of a continuous random variable, because the probability of x equal to x1 or x equal to x2, etc., that is 0. Therefore, you can write, instead of greater than equal to, you can simply write greater than, and if less than equal to, you can simply write less one. Whatever you write, that will be valid. Area under the density function is unity. This is a very important property. As a consequence, what I have written down here is that you can form a valid probability density function from any non-negative real piecewise continuous function psi x that has a finite integral. If you integrate psi x over minus infinity to plus infinity, if you find that the result of this integration is some finite quantity, then simply by dividing psi x by this finite quantity c, what will you have? You will have a function whose area is unity. So that function will serve as a valid probability density function. What is the relation between probability density function and impulse function? Can you tell me? You will come across different types of density function: uniform density function, Gaussian density function, Laplacian density function, etc. But is there any relation between small fx and delta x? अरे किछु तो बोलो. Because you know that the strength of a unit impulse is 1. Strength means the area under the unit impulse. And because the area under density function is also 1, therefore these density functions, they are valid candidates with which you can approximate an impulse function. All right. They serve as approximations for impulse function under certain limiting condition. All the probability density functions. Recall that impulse functions were approximated by rectangular functions. So here we have uniform density function, which is rectangular in shape. So there is an approximation for impulse function. Here you have the Gaussian function. You have also seen that Gaussian functions, they are approximations for impulse functions. You have the double-sided exponential functions or Laplacian function. So that is also an approximation for impulse function. These are the things that you have studied. But because the density under the density, the area under the density function, that is unity, all these density functions can serve as approximations for impulse function. Write it down. I have just written down here what is meant by piecewise continuous, just for your perusal. You know it still. At some point of time, probably I have pointed out that there can also be random variables of the mixed type, combination, synergy of continuous and discrete random variables. So in case of such random variables, the cumulative distribution function not only has jump discontinuities, but it also has regions where it increases continuously. So this is the definition of a mixed type of random variable, for which the cumulative distribution function has jumps on a countable set of points and also increases continuously over at least one interval of values of x. If the second condition is violated, second condition is not present, it is simply a discrete random variable. So what's the nature of the cumulative distribution function? It is of this form. Some quantity p into capital F1 x plus 1 minus p into capital F2 x, where p lies in the range 0 to 1 and F1x is the cumulative distribution function of a discrete random variable, whereas F2 is that of a continuous random variable. I will cite one example. The example will be that of the waiting time for a taxi at a taxi stand. Waiting time, you can also understand that the waiting time is a random variable. But it's a random variable of mixed form. Why? Because if one goes to the taxi stand, there is a probability that he or she will find a taxi there. So that is the discrete part. It may also happen that no taxi is found there, so he or she has to wait, and that waiting time will be a random variable again, a continuous random variable. Thus, it is a combination of both discrete and continuous random variables. Waiting time, which is represented by capital X at a taxi stand, it's 0 if it is found that a taxi is lying parked there in the stand. And it will be a random length of time whose probability density function is constant in the interval 0 to 1 in hours, say, if no taxi is found upon arrival. So this has been assumed that the interval extends from 0 to 1 hour. It could have been much larger also or smaller. Anyway, so the probability that a taxi is at the stand when the customer arrives, it is represented by, say, small p. It is that small p that I have mentioned here. It's a probability value. So you have been asked to find out the cumulative distribution function of capital X. It can simply be found by applying the theorem on total probability. So this probability of capital X less than equal to small x, that obviously gives the cumulative distribution function. So it will comprise of two parts. One is the probability of observing capital X less than equal to small x given a taxi is found into the probability P, all right, plus probability of X less than equal to small x when it is found that no taxi is there, that into 1 minus P. Now this probability, the conditional probability here, it is 1 when X is 0 and 0 otherwise. That's obvious. All right, this conditional probability is either 1 or 0. So it can take on only discrete values, either 1 or 0. But there is a probability of occurrence of 1 or 0. Now, given the condition here in the statement of this problem, it has been stated that the probability density function is constant in the interval 0 to 1 hour. So this is the nature of the probability density function f1x. If this is the nature of the probability density function, what will be the nature of the cumulative distribution function here? It's the integral of f1x. So it will increase linearly here. I am talking about capital Fx. It will increase linearly up to here, and then it will remain constant at a value of 1. That will be the cumulative distribution function. So Fx is 0 for x less than 0, and Fx is p into p plus 1 minus p into x for x less than greater than equal to 0, less than equal to 1. And obviously Fx is 1 for x greater than 1, because it is assumed that it's certain that after 1 hour a taxi will be found. It cannot, waiting time cannot exceed 1 hour. Write down this thing. Just 1 minute. It's all right.
Send answers.
Okay. So this is the nature of the cumulative distribution function. That value is small p, then there is a ramp, and then it remains constant. So what will be the density function of this mixed random variable? Derivative of fx. Here there is a jump discontinuity. So here there will be an impulse function with strength equal to height of the discontinuity, p. Then over that part it's constant, and after that it's 0. 1 minus p. This is the slope of this straight line. So that is the nature of the cumulative distribution function and the probability density function for the mixed random variable. Next example is related to another type of random variable. What is that type called? I'll mention at the end of that example. Suppose in a certain industry, semiconductor wafers are being manufactured. All right. Now, let's assume that capital X is a random variable which represents the number of semiconductor wafers that are to be analyzed in order to detect a large particle of contamination. To try to understand the situation, there are several wafers that are picked up, and one by one the wafers are tested. Whenever a contamination, large particle of contamination is observed, the test stops there. So a particular wafer, we start with a particular wafer, examine it, analyze it, and say we find that there is a large particle of contamination. So it's done. The experiment is over. If we don't find that there is a large particle of contamination is in that first wafer that has been picked up, we keep it, move on to the second wafer. If there is a large particle of contamination, we stop the experiment there. If there is no large particle of contamination, we keep down the second particle and move on to the third particle. In this way, it continues. All right. The wafers are examined one by one. No large particle is found. We move on to the next wafer. So whenever a large particle of contamination is found in a wafer, the test stops there. Now suppose the probability that a wafer contains a large particle, that probability is 0.01. And it's also assumed that the wafers are, I should have written statistically independent. Or more precisely, the probability of finding a contaminant in the wafers, that is statistically independent. That means the occurrence of or non-occurrence of a large contaminant in a certain wafer, in every wafer, it has no influence on the probability of occurrence of a large contaminant in other wafers. That is what is meant. Suppose we represent a wafer in which a large particle is present by the symbol small p. I should have used a different symbol. Be careful, p is not a probability, but p denotes a wafer in which a large particle is present and a denotes a wafer in which it is absent. So the wafers that are in which we find that the large particle is absent, we represent them by a, each of them by a, and the wafer in which the large particle is present, we represent that by p. Now the sample space obviously is infinite theoretically. All right. So it can be represented as all possible sequences that start with a string of A's and end with P. If you have carefully observed my statement, my description, the sample space is of this form, present. All right. If you find that the first wafer that you have picked up, there the contaminant is present, so that is one possibility. The experiment stops there. Second possibility is that in the first wafer, the particle is absent. So A. In the second wafer, we find that the particle is present. So A and P. Third possibility is that in the first wafer, it's absent. So we have to proceed to the second wafer. There also it is absent. So we have to proceed to the third wafer. And suppose it's found that it's present in the third wafer. So the experiment stops there. So absent, absent, present. Similarly, absent, 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 and present. Next one is 4 wafers. In the 4 wafers that are tested sequentially, it's absent, the contaminant, and the 5th wafer is present, and so forth. So there are infinite number of such possibilities. All right. So just you consider a special cases. Probability of x equal to 1 is the probability of presence, that is given as 0.01. Considering statistical independence, we get probability of x equal to 2 equal to probability of the joint occurrence of absence and presence. Absence in the first wafer and presence in the second wafer. All right. So it's the probability of absence, because they are statistically independent, probability of absence times probability of presence. Because probability of presence is 0.01, probability of absence is 0.99. So the product comes out as 0.0099. Probability of x equal to 3, it's this joint probability of first two wafers showing absence of contaminant and the third wafer showing presence of contaminant. So it's probability of A into probability of B, A into probability of P, 0.99 square into 0.01, 0.0098. So probability of x equal to 4 will be 0.99 cubed into 0.01. It will proceed in that way. What will be the general formula for the probability mass function? Probability of capital X equal to X. It will be the probability of X minus 1 number of absences and 1 number of presence. So it will be 0.99 to the power X minus 1 into 0.01. So that is the expression for the probability mass function. Now, random variables of this variety, because of this nature of the expression, it is called a geometric random variable. All right. Write down this part.
Send answer.
Okay. Now here I have just given some functions of x and try to examine whether these are valid functions of cumulative distribution function or not. So what are the checks? Whether it starts at 0 when x is equal to minus infinity and ends at 1 when x is infinite. Whether it is monotonically increasing in between. All right, these are the checks. So these properties are satisfied by the first two functions, whereas the last two do not satisfy these conditions. Because this one, if you go on increasing the value of x, what will happen? This will go on decreasing. For positive value of x, this will go on decreasing. And that one, for different values of x, it will take on values greater than 1. So f infinity will not be equal to 1. So the conditions that I have stated, they are not valid in these two cases. But here they are valid. So first two expressions of functions of small x, they are valid cumulative distribution functions. You can also be given examples, in tabular form, different values assumed by a random variable and their probability values, so-called their claimed probability values. So you may be asked to find out whether they represent probability mass function or not. So there you have to find out whether with increase in value of small x, the declared probability values, they are not decreasing. And ultimately, it's tending to a value of how much? The sum should be equal to 1. The sum of all the probability values claimed, they should be equal to 1. Then only the probability values are valid and it's a probability mass function. I will hand you over, send you by mail 2 problem sheets to both the sections that we do every year. I will send it to both the sections. There are some problems that are solved. There are other problems that are not solved. But don't think that in the exam you will get problems from that sheet, problem sheets. There is no certainty.
Sir, done, sir.
Percentiles of a continuous distribution. You are aware
Sir,
of
one
this
more
term
minute. Could you please
percentile?
scroll up?
Huh?
Could you please scroll up?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
When we say that a certain student has got 85 percentile, what do we mean? 85% of the students, 85% of the student population, they have received marks below the score of this particular student, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And 15% have scored above the marks of this particular student. Similarly, you can understand the meaning of 40 percentile, etc. So, in this line, you have the percentile and quantile of probability distribution. All right. So P, let P be the number between 0 and 1. So 100 into pth percentile or pth quantile, same meaning, different way of expressing the same thing, of a cumulative distribution function of a continuous random variable, which we will represent by alpha with argument p. It is defined in this way. The probability of observing the value of the cumulative distribution function evaluated for alpha with argument p is equal to p. Then this value of alpha will be called the pth quantile or the 100th pth percentile of this cumulative distribution function. It means that it is the probability of observing capital X less than equal to alpha p, and that is given by this integral. All right. It is shown here. So say this is the density function arbitrarily drawn, and say for I mean the area under this density function from x equal to minus infinity up to this value alpha with argument p. This area is equal to p, small p, which is less than 1, obviously.
Sir, alpha beta रेपर की एक ट्रिक्स पर बोल रहे
Alpha b is the value, alpha p is the value of the random variable such that x less than equal to alpha p, that probability is equal to p. All right. Suppose for a certain value x equal to say you 3, you find that this area is equal to 0.4. So then we call that x equal to 3. This is the 40th percentile of this particular distribution. In cumulative distribution function for x equal to alpha p, this value is equal to capital F with argument alpha p, which is equal to p. This value is equal to p. So as simple as that.
It does.
Okay. You will require this definition. I think that I'm not sure in your statistics part.
Sir, could you please scroll up once?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Hmm. Now we are discussing about the cumulative distribution for the probability mass function, the cumulative distribution function, etc. But the eternal question is, how can we find out the most expected value that the random variable can take on? How to find that? The best predicted value of a random variable. Let us see, we'll see that next.
Sentence.
So with that intention, we consider what is known as expectation of a random variable. And after that, we will consider the variance of a random variable. We start with a discrete random variable capital X and small x1, small x2, etc. up to small xm. These are the values that capital X can take on. So capital X obviously is the outcome of some trial. We perform the trial n number of times. So n number of independent trials, and say the outcomes are capital X1, capital X2 in this way up to capital Xn. What is the difference between small x1, small x2, etc. and capital X1, capital X2, etc.? Sum of these capital X values, say capital X1 can be any one of these small m number of values. Capital X2 can be any one of these small m number of values. Capital X3 can be any one of these small m number of values, like that. So straightway, if we take the average of this outcomes, this is the average. N independent trials yielded those values of the random variable. So the average of the values that the random variable assumed, that is the average. So for this average to be the most expected outcome of the trial, what we should have? We should have n equal to infinitely, n should be infinitely large. Only then can we expect that this average value will be the most expected outcome of the trial, most expected value that the random variable can take on. Let's see. Now, we represent this probability of capital X taking on a value of small xj by pj, p subscript j. So probability of small capital X equal to small x1 is p1. Probability of capital X equal to small x2 is p2 in this way. If n is extremely large, then how many x1s do we expect? P1 into n, isn't it? If n is extremely large, then how many, say, if n is extremely large and say we have n1 number of x1s, x1 has occurred n1 number of times, then obviously n1 divided by n, that is equal to p1, isn't it? So n1 will be p1 into n. If capital N is extremely large and say we have observed n2 number of x2s, then n2 divided by n will be p2. So n2 will be p2 into n. So we expect p1 into n number of x1s, p2 n number of x2s, p3, sorry, this is a mistake. p3 n number of x3s. In this way, pm n number of xm's. All right. So now the expected value x bar, the expected value of capital X, we use this operator, expectation of capital X. We also represent it by this notation mu subscript x. What will that be equal to? All x1s added together, all small x1s that have occurred. N1, x1 has occurred n1 number of times. So what's the sum? N1 into x1, isn't it? X2 has occurred n2 number of times. So what will be the sum of all those x2s? N2 into x2. X3 has occurred n3 number of times. So what will be the sum of all these x3s? N3 into x3, like that. And n1 is p1 into n, n2 is p2 into n, n3 is p3 into n, in this way. So all these things will be added together and divided by n. So what will that yield? If you take out n as common here, in the numerator and denominator, they will cancel out. So it will be simply be the sum of xi pi, summation over 1 equal I equal to 1 to m. Xi wxi, pi is same as wxi, I equal to 1 to m. So now this is called a statistical average or expectation. Statistical average, statistical mean, or statistical or expectation. These are the three names. All right, expectation of x. So this is the expression for the expectation of a discrete random variable. What will be the case for continuous random variable? Intuitively, you can understand that the summation has to be replaced by integration. Anyway, I will show later that this expectation of any random variable, it is the best predictor of the random variable. All right. Now write down this part and just make a correction here. P3 into n, number of x3s.
सर एंटा के एक्सट्रीमली लार्ज नेटवर्क चलो
If an experiment is not performed large number of times, the statistical regularity that will not be ensured. That's why I have considered in the case for tossing of a coin that the probability is coming out as 0.5. That can only happen if the tossing experiment is done for a very large number of times, isn't it? So that is the reason. Nota. Joel? Ball. If n weren't very large, you couldn't have expressed the expectation in terms of the probability values. Okay, bol.
done, sir.
P3n number of x3s. Whenever you do some averaging, what is the intention at the back of your mind is that you want to get close to the possible values, most possible value. Now, the expression for the average value, the statistical average or expectation that I have written down there, that will be valid if only this condition is satisfied. summation over I equal to 1 to m magnitude of xi into pi, that is finite. So that summation will converge only if this condition is satisfied. There are obviously, I can't give you an example straight away, but there are random variables for which this the summation doesn't converge absolutely. So for them, the expectation does not exist.
So it does.
Done, sir.
Now, this before that, let me just, before going on to the variance, okay, first move on to the variance, not be proper. Now, expectation of the random variable capital X, does it characterize the random variable completely? This is not the case because I have shown two cases. Just see here. Suppose we have random variable capital X, all right, with a certain expectation. Mu x is the expected value. Here also mu x is the expected value. But just observe the fluctuation of capital X about this mean value. All right, it's very small. The departure, the excursion from the mean value is very small. But here the excursion from the mean value is very large. So although the mean value or expectation in both the cases is same, in the first case, the excursion, the spread of the random variable about the mean, that is small. Here the spread is much larger. So if you think that simply stating the expectation of a random variable gives you the complete characterization of the random variable, we will be wrong. So together with the expectation, some measure of this excursion or spread of the random variable about its mean, that measure should also be included in the characterization of the random variable. All right. So how to, characterize in that manner? How to characterize the spread of the random variable about its mean? What's the way out? One option can be, I mean, you can start, if you start thinking from the first principles, you may say, now the fluctuation of this random variable x from this expectation, that is represented by x minus mu x. For a given random variable, mu x is a constant. Mu x becomes a constant once it's determined. So x minus mu x is a new random variable. All right. So what will be the expectation of x minus mu x? Can it give a measure of the spread? Expectation of x minus mu x is a constant. It is the expectation of x minus expectation of mu x. So expectation of mu x is mu x itself, and expectation of x is again mu x. So expectation of x minus mu x is actually 0, irrespective of the nature of the random variable and irrespective of the value of mu x. All right. X minus mu x is called the centered random variable. It is the fluctuation of the random variable about its mean or expectation. So expectation of the centered random variable, it's obvious, it's 0. So that cannot give you the measure of the spread of the random variable about its mean, the expectation of the centered random variable. Then what? Now, if you take the magnitude of x minus mu x and take the expectation of the magnitude of x minus mu x, do you understand? I am taking the magnitude of x minus mu x and taking its expectation. So that may give you a measure of the spread of the random variable about its mean. But such an expression, expectation of magnitude of x minus mu x, it's very difficult to maneuver mathematically. For mathematical maneuvering, mathematical analysis, if this definition is used to represent a measure of the spread of the random variable about its mean, then that analysis becomes very difficult. So the best way it is found to have a measure of this mean is take the expectation of x minus mu x whole squared. All right. X minus mu x whole squared. And that expectation is called the variance. So after this, you can write down here. Whatever I have stated, I have written down in a different manner. I have stated that the expected value by itself does not provide us with sufficient information about x. Just as an example, if we know that expectation of x is 0, it can happen that this variable x, it is always 0. So that's why the expectation is coming out as 0. But in practice, what may happen that x can take on extremely large positive and negative values. Therefore, we are merely not interested in the mean of the random variable, the expectation of the random variable, but also a measure of the extent to which the random variable varies about its mean. So that's the motivation for going for what is called the variance.
Sir, thanks.
Huh? Yes, please.
Sir, thanks.
Have you drawn these figures? Arbitrarily drawn, although. small fluctuation, large fluctuation. Fluctuation of the random variable about its mean. It can take on positive and negative values, and this fluctuation is called centered random variable. So whatever I have stated, I have written down here. It's not possible to have the expectation of x minus mu x as the measure of the spread, because this is identically zero. And that can be a measure, but it's not very convenient. So this one serves as the measure. Here it should be mu x, this one. So variance of x, which we represent normally by sigma x squared, because sigma x is a very standard notation for representing what is known as the standard deviation. So variance of x, which is the mean square value of the centered random variable, it is equal to the mean square value of x minus the square of the mean value of x. এখানে এটা mu x হবে, this one.
Centers.
So in an identical manner, in case of the discrete random variable, as we did in case of the expectation, here the mean square value also is obtained in an identical manner. So is summation over I equal to 1 to m xi squared pi, or xi squared w with argument xi. And the mean square value exists if summation over I equal to 1 to m magnitude of xi squared pi is finite. The positive square root of the variance, it is called standard deviation. So variance is the mean square value of the fluctuation of x about its mean, whereas the standard deviation of the random variable x, it is the root mean square value of the fluctuation of the random variable about its mean or expectation. Now come to the case of a continuous random variable. In case of a continuous random variable, probability of x equal to x1, x equal to x2, all these probabilities are 0. So what can be considered as the counterpart of a discrete random variable taking on values of x equal to x1, x equal to x2? What may be the counterpart for the continuous random variable? Instead of, in case of a continuous random variable, instead of considering the probability of x equal to x1, what can you consider? What about capital X lying in the range? Oh, sorry. What about uh, capital X lying in the range x1 to x1 plus dx? x1 to x1 plus dx. Probability of capital X lying in this infinitesimally small interval extending from x1 to x1 plus dx. So that will be a logical counterpart. This continuous time, I mean, sorry, counterpart for continuous random variable. For discrete random variable, you have x equal to x1. For continuous random variable, the counterpart is capital X lying in the range x1 to x1 plus an infinitesimally small change dx. All right. So here, say we consider different values of small x. This is the nature of the probability density function. So these are the value x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. The separation between x1 and x2 is dx. The separation between x2 and x3 is dx, infinitesimally small. I have shown a magnified view. That between x3 and x4 is dx, like that. What are the corresponding values of f, small f, fx1, fx2, fx3, fx4, fx5? So if you consider any particular value of small x in this range, small x to small x plus dx, then what will this rectangular area represent? It will give you the probability of capital X lying in this range, small x to small x plus dx. It is actually this area under fx over this span, but because that span is infinitesimally small, we can represent that area by the area of this rectangle, and that will be fx dx. All right. So expectation of x will be what was there in case of the discrete random variable, x1 into pi, isn't it? So here instead of pi, we'll have fx1 into dx plus x2 into, it would have been P2. Here it would have been P1. Here it would have been P2 in case of the discrete random variable. Instead of P2, we'll have here fx to dx. In this way, you have to add up all these products. So probability of x equal to small x, that can be replaced by probability of capital X lying in this range, small x to small x plus dx. That means fx into dx. And the summation should be replaced by integration. All right. So assuming that the random variable can take on a continuum of values in this range, minus infinity to plus infinity, the expectation of x comes out as integration over minus infinity to plus infinity x fx, provided that this particular integral is finite. That means capital X, this product converges absolutely. Otherwise, the expected value will not exist. That is for the continuous random variable. কোথায় হয়েছিল জানো? Remember that fx1 dx, fx2 dx, these are all probability values, because they represent area under the density function.
Settlements.
এই অবধি হয়েছে? শেষ অবধি?
Yes.
So the expectation, whether you consider the discrete random variable or the continuous random variable, it is actually a weighted average of the possible values. So what are the weights assigned to the possible values in case of the discrete random variable? These are the weights are the probability values. And in case of the continuous random variable, these weights are the value of the probability density function at that particular point. So this expectation of a random variable, it actually corresponds to the center of gravity of the distribution. It's analogous to center of mass or CG of the point masses. I will consider the best predictor of random variable. Why expectation is called the best predictor of the random variable, then I'll stop today. আগেরটা লেখা হয়েছে, এইটা লেখা হয়েছে?
Yes, sir.
Say we have a random variable x which is to be predicted, and say that by some means x is predicted as rho. So what is I mean, if we represent the departure of rho from the actual value x, by what will be the departure x minus rho? So that may be called an error in prediction. All right. So square of the error x minus rho whole squared. What will be the mean square error? Once x has been predicted as rho can be treated as constant. So what will be the mean square error? It is the average, statistical average of x minus rho whole squared. So in this expression x minus rho whole squared, within brackets, I have introduced plus mu and minus mu, where mu is the expectation of x. So then I have expanded this term, x minus mu whole squared plus mu minus rho whole squared plus twice x minus mu into mu minus rho. Then I have taken the expectation. Expectation of x minus mu whole squared plus mu minus rho whole squared plus twice mu minus rho into expectation of x minus mu. All right. Now, this expectation of x minus mu, you know that that will be expectation of x minus expectation of mu. Mu being a constant, expectation of mu will be mu itself. So this is 0. That I have already pointed out. So that term is 0, this one. Because expectation of x minus mu is 0. So whatever remains is this one. All right. So that term, I mean, whatever remains is expectation of x minus rho whole squared is expectation of x minus mu whole squared plus mu minus rho whole squared. So that is greater than equal to expectation of x minus mu whole squared. Greater than equal to, because this one can never be negative. It's a squared term. It can never be negative. So that's why we have the greater than equal to sign. So when the left hand side will be minimum, when will it be minimum? The mean square error minimum when this equality will be there. All right. When this term will be 0 under that condition. So mean square error is minimum when x is predicted as mu. All right. If x is predicted as mu, then this mean square error will be 0. So in terms of mean square error, mu is the best predictor of the random variable in terms of minimizing the mean square error. In that sense, mu is the best predictor of random variable. So write down this thing. Then I'll stop today.
Sir, done.
স্যার এক সেকেন্ড একটু বাকি আছে।
না ঠিক আছে, লেখো লেখো।
Yes, sir, done.
After this, you just write down these two expressions. Now, this Wednesday, I have a problem. So just for this week, can you give me some time any other day?
So Tuesday or Thursday.
Okay,
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yes, sir.
At what time? That 7 o'clock.
Yes, the same time.
Okay, Thursday. ঠিক আছে, হয়ে গেলে বলো আমাকে।
Yes, sir. Done.
Okay. So I'm just logging out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.